A good boss fight can stick with you for a long time. Lackluster games can be redeemed by a great boss, and even great games can be made better by a boss fight. Lots of games have good bosses, but there's only a few bosses that are so iconic, so memorable, that they're still one of the first mentioned when the topic of best boss of all time crops up, even 25 years later. Swap your controller to port 2, because we're going to break down why Metal Gear Solid's Psycho Mantis boss fight works so well. So, I'd better start by setting the scene here. If, by some chance, you haven't played Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation yet, the game follows retired soldier Solid Snake through a secret nuclear facility in Alaska as he stops a potential terrorist uprising. Nukes are involved, and believe me, you'll hear a lot about how bad those things are. A lot about genetics, too. Like, a lot about genetics. Probably way too much about genetics. Anyway, these terrorists, rogue agents of a group called Foxhound, stand in Snake's way throughout the game and form a majority of the boss battles. Despite being a game focused on stealth, these boss fights are actually very exciting, intense, and often cinematic. Each member of Foxhound has a specialization, and the boss fights are built around this. It makes each boss feel completely different from each other, which, in 1998, was actually incredibly impressive. For example, the first boss, Revolver Ocelot, can ricochet bullets off walls, and the player is able to actually keep track of his ammo. The idea is that you try to get him while he's reloading, which he loves to do.
I love to reload during a battle. There's nothing like the feeling of slamming a long silver bullet into a well-greased chamber.
Yeah, I don't know if he needed to say it quite like that. How'd this guy even come to love guns so much anyway?
45, huh? Incredible.
Oh.
Do you like it?
Oh, right.
The feeding ramp is polished to a mirror sheen.
Despite most of Metal Gear Solid's bosses being really good, they're all playing for second to the game's fourth boss, Psycho Mantis.
That's right. This is no trick. It's true power.
Psycho Mantis is a powerful psychic, and his entire fight and everything leading up to it is built around his mastery of psychokinesis and telepathy. But it's what that means for the player that makes it so iconic and memorable. How does a psychic prove his power? Well, he'll look at how often you save, of course. Before the battle, he'll actually read your memory card and comment on the amount you've saved. He also has something to say if you've played games from Konami like Castlevania and Suikoden.
So, you like Suikoden? You like Castlevania, don't you?
To further prove his power, he will move your controller using his telepathy. Actually, he's using the DualShock controls, but that's between you and me. And almost as a weird flex, he can just change your first-person camera to Meryl's perspective. I'm not sure where that one fits into the rest of my analysis, so I'm just going to never bring that up again. And that's just what he does before the battle. During the fight, he'll trick your TV into changing into a Hideo input. But perhaps the most famous aspect of this boss battle, he'll read your controller inputs and make it impossible to hit him. The only way to trick Mantis and get around his mind reading is by swapping controller ports. This will finally allow you to kill him in a more traditional boss fight setting, proving that a strong man doesn't need to read the future, he makes his own. These fourth wall breaks and this fight in general elevated Psycho Mantis far beyond just a video game boss and into something known to many outside the world of gaming.
It's the perfect car for you.
So why does it work? What did this boss fight do so well? Well, I mean, yeah, a lot of it is the fourth wall stuff. We'll get to the fourth wall stuff, okay? It's mostly the fourth wall stuff, sure. But let's first look at his design.
And we'll never get that detonation code.
Boss, I have a good idea.
He's pretty cool to look at. The gas mask is instantly a topic of conversation, and of the several trench coats in the game, I gotta say, his is one of the better ones. His battle garb is bold. It's a bold style, but not everyone has that kind of courage. All that to say, before we even get to his powers, he's already kind of interesting visually. But that might not have been enough to elevate him over Russian cowboy or guy who graduated from the University of Alaska. Mantis got his psychic powers because Hideo Kojima was a big fan of the Brian De Palma movie The Fury. And of course he was. Kojima will see anything with Jim Belushi in it. The movie is about a dark and twisted psychic, and like with a lot of movies Kojima liked, he just said, okay, I'll take that, and boom. In-universe, it seems like there are plenty of psychics around. Mantis just seems to be one of the best ones. I mean, characters have mental shielding in Metal Gear Solid in order to protect them from psychics. So there's enough around that this technology is necessary. As an aside, that's pretty interesting, as most of the more paranormal aspects of the Metal Gear Solid series are explained away by... roll the clip.
Nanomachine, son!
Yeah, those. But that doesn't seem to be the case with psychics. They're the real deal, baby. Also, ghosts. But we don't really have to worry about that. Well, actually, I guess we do. He does become a ghost in Metal Gear Solid 4, doesn't he? I'm not elaborating on that. Oh, back to his drip for a second. The gas mask is what keeps him from accidentally reading minds. To be honest, it sounds like absolute hell, but it's interesting, adds to the vibe, you know how it is. Now that we've established his look is interesting and his power set is interesting, let's talk a little bit about the man. Now, he's been a little bit retconned from his appearance in Metal Gear Solid 5. There, he's just a little guy full of hatred floating around trying to find someone to match his freak, but I don't want to get too in the weeds on that. We're trying to just stick to Metal Gear Solid right now. In Metal Gear Solid, his origin is that he worked for the FBI reading the minds of killers to solve crimes, until one day he dove too deep into a serial killer's mind and went crazy. But he also burned down his village just to kill his dad, who hated him for killing his mother during childbirth. So maybe he was already a little crazy? He also hates people, like all of them. He hates how horny they are and how they just want to have kids. Anyway, the guy's unhinged, but a clever dude. Doug Stone, his voice actor, also did something interesting in Metal Gear Solid. He didn't receive a ton of direction, so he made the character choice that Mantis would have an almost indecipherable accent. I think it mostly works. He sounds pretty Russian, but he also kind of sounds like Werner Herzog. Reading minds is a very dangerous profession. There's a little bit of Romanian in there, which I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be, and I think it adds to the performance. So now we have a more full picture of the character of Psycho Mantis. I chose to start here because, in my opinion, I feel like all of this adds to why the fourth wall stuff later ends up working. I mean, imagine without the gas mask.
Oh, gross.
No, I mean, like if he never had it. Never mind, it doesn't matter. Let's move on to the build-up to the fight and all that ambiance.
That's strange. There's no guard.
What happened to the music?
So, to set the scene, Snake has just met up with Meryl, the only soldier who didn't participate in Liquid's takeover. Also, conveniently, Colonel Campbell's niece. Notably, she has
Great butt.
a lot of great qualities that make her an interesting character. Anyway, Snake and Meryl decide to team up for a bit after Meryl promises that she won't get in the way. Meryl immediately gets in the way when Psycho Mantis takes control of her mind. However, Mantis is operating under the assumption that Snake is a not punching women in the face sort of hero. A rare miss for Mantis. With Meryl sleeping off her fresh concussion, Mantis finally reveals himself to Snake. Then we go into the whole fourth wall break section where Mantis reads our memory card and shakes our controller. This build-up, again, before we even include the fourth wall elements, just feels so special from nearly every other fight in the game. I mean, to involve Meryl, who we've literally been traveling with for 15 seconds, is just a subversion of what we expect. You'd think maybe this is going to be a little section where we have some support or have to protect her at worst, but it's neither. She just immediately becomes entangled in the next boss fight in a way that forces you to harm her in some way. This isn't even breaking the fourth wall yet, and already the player, just as much as Snake, is being toyed with. The moment plays with our feelings about Meryl and our expectations on how a game is structured. Oh, and now would be a good time to talk about the music. Mantis has his own theme, and it plays throughout the floor when you visit. It's actually an audio clue of where to find Meryl because it's playing in the background when you call her to find out where she is. Otacon actually mentions it, he can hear it. People in-universe can hear it. Right before the fight, it's not playing and Snake is weirded out that there's no music. It's supposed to be his mind control music, but I don't know how that works, so I'm not going to go into it too much. But Mantis' hymn is 100% responsible for setting the ominous tone before we ever see Mantis. It's dark and foreboding and kind of scary. The music, coupled with this emotional and sudden build-up to the reveal of Mantis, means you're starting what comes next on edge and a little disarmed. Now, let's stop dancing around it. Let's tear down. Hey, I'm actually breaking the fourth wall here real quick to ask you to please give this video a like and go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you're enjoying it. It helps out a lot and I have more videos like this coming. Okay, back to it. On the wall.
You used the other.
So before even diving into how Mantis breaks the fourth wall, let's talk about what that really means. The fourth wall in theater is the one you can't see between the audience and the actors on stage. Therefore, to break the fourth wall is to have a character acknowledging the audience as if the wall isn't there.
Don't even think about using auto fire, or I'll know.
This is often a bold and intentional writing choice and is usually reserved for comedy. Often these act as little winks to the audience more than outright narrative choices. Well, Kojima just said, what if we had a whole ass fight? where the fourth wall just doesn't exist. And it worked, because it's not just a gimmick in the fight. It actually fits into the narrative and the character of Psycho Mantis. Throughout the game, there have been small to medium moments of fourth wall breaking. One of the very first dialogues of the game is Campbell explaining actions to Snake, and he says things like select button and action button to acknowledge the controls. We don't really think of this at the time, but it works to remind us that this is a video game we're playing. Later, Baker can't remember what Meryl's codec code is, so he has Snake look on the back of the CD case. But what he's talking about is the actual CD case the game came in. This is a much bigger fourth wall break than before, but it's one that's almost a joke or a wink to the audience like I mentioned before. But again, it was important to have these because it sets up that there's already a flimsy fourth wall in this game. And if that's the case, of course it makes sense that a character who is psychic would be able to completely see past this fourth wall. If we didn't have those other moments of fourth wall breaking, then Mantis coming in and having a whole boss fight built around it would feel sort of gimmicky. It would feel out of place, but it doesn't here. Mantis is just taking a concept we've already seen and taking it up to 11. And what does he do with it? He talks about things like saving and other Konami games that are on your card. These aren't really things that Snake would know anything about, is it? No, it's because Mantis is talking to you. He's talking to the player. The reason why writers don't often break the fourth wall outside of comedy is because it ruins immersion. Ruins this idea that what you're playing or watching is real, you're a part of it. Kojima broke the fourth wall specifically to break that immersion. But he's not saying you're not a part of it, you are. You're just not Solid Snake.
No, that is not Solid Snake.
Between Meryl and this intro fourth wall segment, Psycho Mantis has already landed several blows on us before the fight even begins. There's a tension here from his dancing behind and beyond the fourth wall. It's really not something I've felt in a game since, and I sure as hell had never felt it before. And then we start the battle. Before you really do anything, Mantis pulls up the Hideo screen to make you think that you've gone to another input on your TV. This Hideo screen is another disabling fourth wall break, as now it seems as if he's actually managed to go beyond the bounds of the PlayStation and control your TV. Also, I must say that Hideo's name being so close to video is just one of those, truly predestined things. It's also crazy his name has Hyde in it. Dude was the chosen one for sure. Anyway, Kojima said the reason he wanted to have players switch controller ports in battle is because he thought of the idea of an old master telling his pupil to clear his mind. By removing the controller, we essentially are clearing Snake's mind, which allows us to fight using that second port. Apparently, the younger members of his development team thought that was a terrible idea. Thankfully, Kojima went forward with it because you always bet on Kojima. Well, actually you don't. He had a lot of really bad ideas in his time that he had to be talked down from. One time he wanted to completely wipe the cartridge of all data if you were spotted in the original Metal Gear. He's absolutely out of his mind for that one, so that was good that we didn't have that. But whatever. It just shows that Mantis' power makes sense in universe, and it has some sort of logic around them. He's not just Foxhound Zach Morris talking to the audience whenever he wants. So in a way, Mantis isn't fully breaking the fourth wall. He's just manipulating the very idea of it. Because his powers are so potent in universe, there actually isn't an immersion break in the way we understand them from other media. It actually in some ways adds to the immersion, because we're seeing him demonstrate that power alongside Snake. It's almost as if Snake and the player are two separate protagonists working together to defeat Mantis. That only works in a video game. It only works because of that idea that a player and a protagonist are both connected, yet separate. It plays on the medium and uses our own assumptions and what we know about video games against us. In fact, in the novelization of Metal Gear Solid by Raymond Benson, Psycho Mantis sort of just makes Snake hallucinate. It just goes to show how necessary it was for this to be a video game. The format it's in matters because its format is the exact thing that Mantis is playing with. It's all of this that comes together to make the entire fight serious and grounded. This fight could have easily gone down as something crazy goofy. I mean, it is a little funny, Psycho Mantis asking us if we like Castlevania, but because of the tension built up prior, we never fully relax. This keeps the stakes high. I mean it. When I stream this, which, if you'd like to be a part of that, you can join me on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday night on Twitch, link in description. There were viewers who had never played MGS still impressed by the boss fight in the modern day. So it's not just nostalgia, the fight holds up. Then after the fight, we get a monologue from Mantis about how terrible the world is. But it comes from a place of a dying man who's almost remorseful? He's not. He's not fully there, but there's something about him. In his last moments, he actually helps Snake and Meryl, a moment he calls nostalgic in the original Japanese text. Kojima said he used the word nostalgic because he was remembering the kindness of his mother in his final moment. So, just like that, we take this psychotic character. I mean, he's literally called Psycho, right? And we're giving him some sort of full arc in the span of 15 minutes? One of the most talked about and recognizable video game characters of all time, and he's on screen for like 15 minutes. He's like Alec Baldwin and Glengarry Glen Ross. He shows up, steals the show, and leaves.
Always be closing. Always be closing.
So yeah, a huge part of the legacy of this boss fight is fourth wall breaking, but everything needed to come together perfectly for it to work. Mantis isn't interesting because he breaks the fourth wall. He breaks the fourth wall because he's interesting. It's a subtle difference, but it means a lot. It's the difference between a boss fight being a cheesy gimmick and being one of the greatest boss fights of all time. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and go ahead and subscribe and stick around to see more like it. I got a lot of great stuff coming down the pipeline that I can't wait to share with everybody. If you have anything to say about Psycho Mantis or Metal Gear in general or boss fights in general, go ahead and drop it below and let's talk about it. Thank you again so much for watching, thank you for being a part of this community, and we'll see you again on the next one.